It's been a night, huh?
Yes, already.
I know. Like, one way, having so much of the vote back in has been cool because I mean, we're actually seeing like a quite a disparity because some states that didn't do any modifications for the pandemic are doing it in the old system, right? So I just looked up and like Louisiana's got 8% of their vote in, right? And it like reminds you of the slow crawl of like election returning. But like in the other way, like you'll look up and it's like 85% in, and then you're kind of like, oh wait a minute, like now it's over, like all the suspense about like Florida, was
It
like,
all happened so fast. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
So anyway, but yeah, it's stressful. But I don't want to ask you about your stuff because I want to ask you when we're on the show.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I think we all knew we were in for a long night. But
yeah.
there definitely is that feeling of hurry up and wait in maybe even a different way than we've seen in different election cycles for sure.
Yeah. So Flip, like tell us when like people can hear us because
I think we've just gotten it connected. We should be live now on the cycle and on YouTube. So take it away whenever you're ready.
All right. So and then like can you tell us too like how many people are in the thing? Like viewers wise? Because like, I don't want to jump right in either and you know kind of give people a minute to get in. Let's see, because I put the tweet out. Could you RT it too, Flip? Since predicted's down, people will be looking for something to do.
I can RT it also.
Chuck Rocha tweeted out, my next book is going to be called I Told You So. And I tweeted back, not if I write it faster than you. That's funny. I mean, I wish I wasn't right. I wish there was a Lincoln Project effect, Like I wish Republicans were disaffected and voting against Trump. Because they should be, right?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to figure out how many crossovers we might have, right, at the level of the ballot.
Oh, your level is totally different. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, in terms of like even just ever knowing what happened, right? Because it's so hard to pull it. You can't even really pull a state house district.
Yeah, the polling, I mean, it varies from state to state, but obviously the margin of error is higher than at other levels of the ballot, and it's expensive to get a sample. So we've relied on sort of analytics and like other like ways to get samples, but it's hard to know.
Yeah.
In districts, we saw Biden like way up, but it was difficult to figure out if that would translate to our level of the ballot.
Yeah. So my experience was it was hard to get the number with the districts are so small that it's hard to get a number of completes that you need for really good analytics,
Yeah.
So like what we did in 2019 in Virginia ultimately was, find some that were similar to each other and just do a three or four of them together, which wasn't ideal because you couldn't do like a candidate head to head. I mean, we had to ask generic, are you going to vote for the Republican or Democratic candidate? So,
yeah.
because I always wondered like what I would have candidates send me their internals, both on the Republican and Democratic side. And I was always like, why are they doing these polls with 300 respondents, And that's why, like, that's just all you can get out of the sample.
Yeah. I mean, at first, I think during the pandemic, and I don't know if you saw this in any of your research, but the people were responding more. But as the year went on with campaigns, it sort of a declining effect. So that's always, I think even before people were like, hey, polling is broken in 2016, at our level of the ballot, we'd been in that discussion for a long, long time about can you even get people to stay on enough to have it to inform message testing? Like, what are the other ways that we can really get to the heart of the messaging for the district?
Mm-hmm. So tell us then, now that we've been on a couple minutes, again, everybody, hi, welcome to election night. Flip, is there anybody watching us? I have no analytics.
Yeah, we've got about 90 folks watching now, and it's scaling up nice and quickly. So I'll go ahead and jump into things.
I know, welcome election night refugees from MSNBC and CNN. And I know it's hard to look away because that thing is moving so fast and furiously. But we are going to have Senator Casey on here in a few minutes, and I'm going to be asking him a little bit about Pennsylvania, what his sense is. We haven't seen much, or at least last time I looked, haven't seen much in terms of the results coming from the Midwest. Has that changed, Flip, in the last few since we've been messing around?
I mean, they called, Decision Desk called Missouri.
Right.
Parsons. Now, I don't know if that's, if the
the upper Midwest, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The blue wall.
Yes.
Yeah. So I haven't heard anything from the upper blue Midwest wall. And, obviously if that changes, we're going to, zero in on it, because that's the electoral college winner, right? If Biden wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, as my original forecast pointed out in 2019, that's it. I mean, that's game over. So Florida, North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia, all of those other states were, I guess you would call them the frosting on the cake. Now, where we're at in terms of where I think things are anyway, and I had kind of talked about two possibilities based on what we'd seen in the early vote. We knew for sure, the negative partisanship coalition was baked in, right? We knew for sure that had manifested. The giant turnout surges of Dem coalition voters, so women, voters of color, young voters, college educated voters, especially college educated women, that all came to pass as we anticipated, as it did in 2018, and got locked in. And we saw that happen during the early vote period, and really even I guess overperformed what I would have expected. I certainly wouldn't have said, oh, we're going to see the entire state of Texas's 2016 vote show up in early vote, right? And I think we saw 4 or 5 states do that in early vote. So that is, baked into the cake. But that's what I would call the negative partisanship models, anticipation for the election. And then I was talking about the last few days, there's a second component, right? Which is the pandemic effect or potential pandemic effect. You might even call it the Lincoln Project effect, of potentially getting Republican crossover, additional surplus Republican crossover. And that, if it was big, could have produced a huge night. We could have seen Texas and Georgia flipping. I don't think that is what we're seeing, right, in this data. I think there's still potential for North Carolina to flip. And Arizona is a different beast. I mean, Arizona was part of the negative partisanship model turnout surge. And I think Arizona is still very competitive for Biden and for the Senate race. But that's because it is part of that negative partisanship realignment surge thing. Texas is too, and Georgia is too, but it's just also needing a little bit of extra oomph to get it over the finish line. And so that's where we're at. I think we're kind of which kind of election are we going to see? And we're going to see, I think, one that's going to really rely on that blue wall. And my guess is still some additional electoral college, buffer in the form of Arizona and potentially North Carolina. And, probably that, Senate majority, but not a huge extra Senate majority, because you need to see a Lincoln Project effect to see Montana and Kansas, right? And I think we would have seen it if we were going to see it. So Jessica, though, is the chair of the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee. And until our senator comes, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of the state legislative races?
Well, and thanks again for having me on, Dr. B. Really appreciate it. It's great to be back. The first thing I would say is we always knew that we were on a challenging map across the country in states like Pennsylvania, Florida, Texas. Those are gerrymandered maps. In many cases, these maps have not been challenged in court, unlike some of the congressional maps. So that made many of these things a little bit more difficult. From the beginning, though, we knew that in many ways the election, it looked very good in many states. So we're looking at places like Arizona and thinking about hopefully flipping the Arizona State House and Senate.
Yeah.
Minnesota Senate is a big target of ours. Iowa was looking very good. But in all of our polling across the country, we were still seeing not a landslide anywhere. All of these race chambers were still very competitive. Even if Biden was up, and he was up in many of these races, we still were in toss-up status for these seats. And certainly we wanted people to go along with their opinion of Trump, which was very low. Biden was way up in many of these seats. But some of these Republicans were able to establish themselves as candidates that would not be sort of as associated with Trump, which I think was surprising, but something that we are continuing to see.
Yeah, that would frustrate the hell out of Dr. B, as you well know. Because of course, the doc would have nailed them, right? Like the bulletin pin each and every one of them to Trump, right? But
Yeah.
So do you have definitive results on those, or?
No, I don't think what I can say is we did have a red to blue flip in North Carolina. Deontay Salvador, and that was in an improved district. So that was a big red to blue flip. We've had a red to blue flip also in New Hampshire, but everything is still very early.
Okay.
Level of the ballot, it just takes a longer time to resolve it. I wish I had.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I didn't know that you had any results.
So limited results, but from some of the East Coast states, and just in general, looking forward to actually seeing in North Carolina some of these districts come back. In the district that we just flipped in Charlotte, it's in sort of the Charlotte area. The woman is a fifth generation person from that area. She sort of fought for education, rebuilding the economy, and young African-American woman, and flipped the seat from red to blue. So it's a great feeling. This is another suburban area seat. And that's something that we saw all across the country, that the suburbs were beginning to trend sort of toward us. And this is one place that we picked that up.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Hey, Flip, is the senator on the Zoom yet?
We don't have him in the waiting room yet, but I'm keeping an eye out.
All right. And I'm just going to double check and make sure, because I don't want anyone sitting there who's waiting, and make sure that he still comes. Okay. Oh, he's running late. No worries. We can fill the time. That's for sure. Plenty of things to talk about. So Trump has carried South Carolina. And I haven't heard any, I haven't seen the data on Flip. Where are you at? Why don't you want to get on camera too?
Sure. Hang on a sec.
Have you seen any data on the South Carolina Senate race?
One moment.
Yeah, there you go.
Here we are. You got me now?
Yeah, you should join the party.
I have not seen data on South Carolina Senate. I'll see if I can bring it up in real time. I have been mostly trying to follow the prediction markets, as you know, being my bailiwick. And unfortunately, predicted has been down for the last 2 hours, buckled under the extreme volume. So we're looking over kind of some of the UK markets, and Smarkets, one of the big ones, as you may know, and followers of this of Old Bull will know. We host a podcast with a couple of the UK betting markets managers, and Smarkets being one of them. Smarkets is showing Trump overall having shot from a 30% chance to win to a 65% chance to win the Electoral College. This is a more volatile and I think slightly lower volume Pardon me 1 sec. My dog is eating my couch.
Yeah, well, you should have fed him. No, I'm just kidding. No, my dog tries to
I'm
eat
back.
everything.
She's off.
Oh yeah, you guys think that's bad. Check this out.
But so it's been
My
interesting
dog
because
brought me a disemboweled bunny foot, but aren't they supposed
lovely.
to be lucky, right? I think we need luck tonight, so I'm going to take that. Disemboweled, is that the word? Whatever. It's
Disembodied.
a bunny, yeah.
But I'm just going to see if I can pull up that South Carolina Senate race. Let's see. This is showing here, and this is from AP, is showing Graham with 55% to Harrison 44%. And that looks pretty early still. That's with less than 1 million votes cast. I'm not sure what percentage that equates to in South Carolina. Clearly no call yet.
Well,
again, it'd be times like this would be great if we had predicted map up. You could see all the updated odds. But
Gardner has lost his seat in Colorado. That is one pickup for Dems. Did you guys hear?
Love to see it.
I didn't know that had happened already until now. I don't know if that was an old call. Yeah. So
so it looks like South Carolina, just to close the circle on that, is 29% reporting with that roughly 11-point edge to Graham. I do not have an AP map up. North Carolina, obviously an interesting one. It looked like Cunningham was starting to put that away a bit. They got 83% reporting in Cunningham with a 0.7% lead.
That's close.
So that's a close one. I'd heard anecdotally, I think on Twitter, that Tillis was slightly outpacing Trump in North Carolina. Not sure if that's still the case though, because again, Tillis is a little bit underwater, and I think last I'd seen, the projection was that Trump would edge it out in North Carolina, but obviously we still have a little ways to go here in the counting.
Okay. Yeah, I know for sure Colorado has been called for Hickenlooper. So that's one pickup. They haven't called anything else though, have they? In the Senate? Like that's a pickup. Or not, or a failed pickup, you know?
NBC just projected that McConnell won Kentucky.
Well, yeah. If you were following Bitecofer, you weren't sending any money to Kentucky.
Yeah, you've got no call yet in Maine. Collins leading 58-34, but only 6% reporting, so that one's still early.
Yeah.
You got Purdue in Georgia, Purdue over John Ossoff with 57-41, and Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock basically neck and neck at 28 and change percent.
I mean, I will say this, like the North Carolina Senate race has only changed leads once, you know, over the count. And it's got 1 quarter left and it's tied basically. So it's going to be close. And then they have 5 ways, 5 different, I mean, there's more, but there's 5 that I think are feasible that they have to defend to keep that majority. It's going to be intense. So how come there's only 43% of the Senate vote on this New York Times tracker reported, but I thought like for the presidential that it was like much higher?
Which state are you looking at?
Well, I'm using the New York Times and I'm looking at Georgia for the Ossoff Purdue Senate race.
I'm showing 46% per AP is in.
Yeah, there's 85% of the vote. Oh wait, sorry.
Hard to know. Sometimes it's percentage of precincts with anything reporting, and sometimes it's percentage
44.
of the overall vote count that's in.
Okay, now I see. Okay, no, I must have been looking at something else. Hopefully we get our senator here soon. I'm dying to hear like what people are saying in Pennsylvania,
Yeah, things must be pretty busy in Pennsylvania tonight, I would think. I'm just going to see if I can pull up, since we don't have predicted, if I can get a Schmarkets quote on presidential race in Predicted. I'm not sure.
Just for people who are watching this, just so you know, and because I was never familiar with the Predicted like betting market stuff, that stuff is always way more bullish on Donald Trump winning than like the Nate Silver forecasting, political forecasting stuff. And I don't really know why like the political betting world models are so bullish on Trump. And I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's something we've been talking about in the other shows we've been doing today too. And because it's interesting, in 2016 and 2018, there was not that big a divergence. I mean, the prediction markets and Predicted itself was more Trump bullish and Republican bullish. But of course, in 2016, they still predicted a Clinton victory. It's just they were less certain of the Clinton victory than the forecasters, and so they turned out to be less wrong,
right,
than some of the others. But basically in line with 538 was what they were 538 and Predicted were basically in sync in 2016. This year, total huge divergence. I mean, 538 was obviously a little bit more Trump bullish than the others. But their final prediction was about 10% versus some of the others were 2, 4, 5%, and Predicted was 35 to 40% for Trump. So huge divergence this year, so we'll have to see when all the dust settles, sort of what to make of that. But this was an interesting cycle, and that was the first one we saw a really major divergence between the markets and the modelers and the pollsters.
Right.
It looks like on the topic of Georgia, like Georgia mail-in ballots will not be counted until tomorrow in Fulton County, Georgia, due to a pipe burst at State Farm Arena. So they'll continue to watch this incident and just make sure that everybody's counted, that Georgia and NAACP is on it. But that may delay some of the results. We have a few key state legislative flip opportunities in Georgia. House District 52, a guy named Shay Roberts that's running, so that there is some down ballot effect as well, because we are watching the Georgia House quite closely. And then certainly in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania State House is a huge target of ours. I was just up in Pennsylvania door knocking with a candidate named Brittany Rodas this weekend. And it really felt like a swing district. There were folks that were Democrats that were absolutely fierce about wanting to vote on election day, that were still sort of in my packet, and because they obviously removed the early voters. And then there were also absolutely Trump supporters on our turf. We had a child yell Trump 2020 out of an SUV at us. So it really feels tense for sure, even in that part of Pennsylvania, which is sort of suburban new development.
I've got a whole bunch of tabs open. I'm just jumping over to the waiting room. Still not seeing anyone lurking in our waiting room.
He's running late. Imagine
do you want to open up to any questions, Rachel, from those watching in the YouTube? See if anyone's got
let's
something might want to ask.
Questions. I think that's a great thing to do. Because
So, and this is actually a point of clarification too on this. So if you're watching this at the Cycle website, I don't think that you'll have the live chat window visible to you. But if you want, you can open up a new tab and go to youtube.com/oldbulltv. So youtube.com/oldbulltv. And the first window that you should see at the top is going to be this same exact live stream. And if you jump into that live stream, make that your main window, then you will see the typical chat window that you get on the side of a live stream in YouTube. So we'll give folks that may be watching at the Cycle website maybe a minute to jump over there. I'm seeing various comments flowing through on the YouTube page. So I know we have a number of people that are watching in that forum as well, but just so that people are watching at Rachel's site, have a minute to jump over there, and then I'll keep an eye on that and feed you any interesting questions that pop up in a minute.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because I have some stuff. I'm scheduled to be available for MSNBC starting at 10. So I'm just texting back the senators' handlers to let them know, like I I have to be available for that, you know. We did the whole show. Yeah. That's how it goes, you know. Oh man. Yeah, but you know, one thing that we do know for sure is that, you know, polarization, hyperpartisanship, there's not a lot of, you know, it's a big night for the negative partisanship model. This is a shitty night for America, you know?
Rachel, I can tell you that a good number of the last 4 or 5 comments that have come through have basically been the same question, which is simply, how worried should we be? So do you have any wise words for your viewers?
Should be, you know, I mean, the blue wall will either hold and manifest, right? Or it won't. You know? You know, I mean, the vote that is not there right now is the vote that I was always very bearish on being there. Republican assisting, you know, which is, you know, it would have been disastrous if that was like in 2016, the whole Shambit hung on. They didn't do any base mobilization or outreach to the components of the Dem coalition, and they invested the whole thing on this idea that they're going to reach across the aisle and show concerned Republicans, and the Republicans would then come over and save America from the shit show, right? And that totally didn't happen, right? In 2018, 2020, it's okay to make that mistake because Democrats are and left-leaning independents and regular independents are fired up anyway and going to show up, right? They could have been showing up more if Democrats had spent, you know, the few years here building infrastructure for Latinos in Florida and Texas, and you know, all of the effort and money that was spent in converting Republicans was spent still building out the young people outreach, voters under 40, Latino voters, voters of color, things like that. I mean, you know, but Democrats did some things right. They nominated Harris and not Klobuchar, right? So like I feel good that Midwest blue wall is going to come through, because ultimately Biden needs 270, not 340, right? You know, because I never believe, I kept telling people, I don't see it in the data. Where are these Republicans? They're on their focus groups. I understand you're bringing them before me on MSNBC, but where are they in the data? Because it's 90-10, 90-10, 90-10, right? And until you show me 85-15, 80-20, you know, and they are not in Georgia and Texas at the numbers that they need to be. And that's why Georgia's close and Texas is close. And I think we're going to still see some really positive developments down there for the state house and the, you know, federal house races that are down there. So, and I think like it's kind of a shame that Biden made a serious push for Texas, because it's making people feel like there's a failure down there when really there is quite a bit of success. But, you know, ultimately, in order to push Texas over the edge, you probably do need to be able to pull some right-leaning independents over. And the only thing to do that, you know, you need persuasion, right? And if you can't persuade people when they're literally being murdered through incompetence, like, you know, hopefully now we can have a serious conversation about where we're at and what we're going to do about it, because, you know.
We're getting a question here, a more specific one about the military vote, specifically how it's likely to break and when it's likely to come in. Do you have any insights into that in terms of how that's likely to break out and when that gets added?
Yeah. So the thing going on with the military is the same thing that's going on everywhere else. There is an enlisted component of the military, which is generally speaking high school educated. And then there's the officer corps. And the officer corps is more Democratic, and the enlisted component is more Republican based. And so, like, that's, you know, like if you were to guess, you know, is somebody going to break one way or the other? That's the predictor. But again, like, what matters is this like, so, you know, like, all of the one thing I keep articulating to people that I've really crystallized in this last couple of months, but it's taken me a couple years, like interacting with practitioners and data journalist people and journalist people coming from the academy. And also, like, you know, I'm a weirdo, right? So I'm like even weird within the academy, but it's taken me a long time to finally get to this point. And I've realized it's this, okay? Like, the world looks at voters and they look at, you know, married woman and white woman and Black woman and Latino woman and all these different categories. And they assess them on issues and all of these different attitudes and things. Political scientists, and me at the most extreme end of that, doesn't do any of that. Like, here's 100 people. Are you Republican or Democrat or independent? Okay, Republican, Democrats over there, independents. Do you lean? Okay, you get over there. And now I'm down to 10 people. And then I might care if you're a woman or an evangelical or, you know, gay or straight or whatever, right? But until I get down to that 10 and impose that party, like, it doesn't matter. Like, because none of that shit matters. And they can have a conversation with me. So if I don't ask that question right the first time at the beginning, they'll trick, they certainly can give me a rich and flourishing conversation about issues and about things that make me feel like they have this nuanced, persuadable attitude. But at the end of the fucking day, the data doesn't lie, okay? And the data says they're going to vote for Trump, even if he kills them in a pandemic, right? So, you know, I have learned over this last 2 years that that's not how the practitioner world looks at voters. Like, that's not, I mean, I don't know in the Republican coalition so much how they do it, but definitely Democrats do not do that. They don't take voters and break it down first by party. And I think that, you know, this tonight would be a good example of where that doesn't serve you well. And you should, you know, it's an unfortunate component of the modern electorate that's, you know, where we're at. But like, you know, Jessica's just talking about here, the potential that some of these Republicans may have been able to separate themselves from Trump. Like, that would never happen in the Republican Party. Like, there would never be, they would never allow those people the room to separate themselves. And, you know, you're in a war. You gotta be able to wage the war. Right? Yeah.
Well, I think we'll see military ballots, I think, come in along with the other, along with the regular absentee ballots. So I will see how they break, right?
Yeah, but my guess is it will be, because there's, I mean, here's the thing, there's more enlisted military men than there are officers, right? So it'll be in Trump's favor, in other words, but it won't be as big as it has been in the past. Like, the military advantage for Republicans, like, at least if the Military Times survey, that's probably the best thing you can look at, is the last Military Times survey, you know. And there has been, I mean, Jesus, if people were capable of looking at things, you know, I mean, the military record of Trump, he calls our troops losers, and he thinks they're losers. Like, he thinks anybody that goes and serves the country for free is a chump, right? And like, the people, like my neighbors, like, they know that, you know what I mean? Like, they see that they are their former army, and they're like horrified by it, you know. But if you have this partisan blinder on that won't let you get to that stage, and that's where America's at, you know, just trying to get people to understand we're sick. Like, this is a country that has a virus, all right? Like, this country has a very serious virus. And if we beat Donald Trump, tonight, it will be because we have dodged a major bullet, and it will be, it's not about issues. Like, it's like the big issue is Democratic collapse. That's the issue that we're in. And, beating Trump is only going to buy us time. We're only lucky that the man has serious personality disorders that made it so that we could beat him, And again, it's not a given that we will beat him. Everything that we needed in terms of the turnout is there. So we should beat him. And the Midwest data should be there.
We're getting some questions about the Midwest and Ohio and Pennsylvania. And I think, people are looking at, obviously, at the firewall. If Trump's able to take not only Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, possibly Arizona, then obviously Ohio is still a question mark. Pennsylvania is the biggest question mark. But how, obviously Ohio is sort of the traditional bellwether, and that's shifted a little bit. And what we saw in 2016 with the surprise, fall of the Rust Belt into Trump's column. How correlated would you expect those Midwest, Rust Belt and upper Midwest states to be? So the Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, even maybe Minnesota, those 4 or 5 to be. In other words, if we start to see, I think Wisconsin's supposed to get some pretty good results by the end of the night. If we get some good, solid results from one or more of those Midwestern states tonight, can we expect that to be a fairly reliable bellwether of sort of the directionality of those, or are they somewhat more fractured this year?
No, I think they're all going to roll together. Yeah. Yeah, I think they'll all roll together. And again, what happened to them the first time is not what people think happened to them. All right. And people think that Trump had this revolution with them. Now the potential's there. Like, there is a ton of white working class, non-college educated white people who are aggrieved, but the turnout was there, right? Like, the turnout of young people, college educated people, and minorities was there. So it should be there. But this idea that Biden was going to go to Scranton and do better, no. Like, those union Democrats, and you got to give it up to the GOP. I mean, they're just better in every way, in every single strategic electioneering way, because not only did they go and decimate the unions, which is good for business, it also detached these voters, right, from the Democratic Party, right? And now they're all it's grievance politics, like buffet up there, right? So Biden spent so much energy and time in that Western PA region because he's convinced that he can do better there. No, I mean, I would just be shocked if he does better there. I think that they did spend some campaign resources on Black voters in Western PA in those rural areas. So I don't know, maybe he will actually do better there, but it won't be the white non-college educated white people. It will be because of those, resources invested in the Democratic pockets in those areas. But,
Yeah, I mean, certainly our goal there is to win the Pennsylvania State House. Biden is way up in a lot of especially those Collier County suburban districts, Chester, Bucks, Montgomery,
right.
Feeling very good. And then some of our Democrats are outperforming Biden in Western PA, and they'll be able to hold it down there. Some long-serving Democratic incumbents. I mean, what you've said about the Republican Party's attempt to decimate labor unions is absolutely true. But with that, unfortunately, I'm going to have to sign off.
Okay.
Of a 10. It's not as exciting as yours.
Yep. Jessica, so great to have you on. Again, I think we're still looking at some massive seat gains. I mean, I just saw a text that says Roger Williams in Texas 25 is looking at potentially losing his seat, or is at least going to be really close to losing it. And that means down ballot in Texas, those state legislative races have to be pretty hot.
It's exciting. I definitely think we're going to gain some seats for sure tonight in Texas.
Yeah. I'm really excited. I think it's a real testament to what amazing job the state legislative apparatus has done under you. So,
well, thanks so much. Thank you for your leadership. And I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jessica. Everybody follow Jessica at Jessica Post on Twitter. And
Yeah.
Rachel, do you want to, I know had to be available at 10 for MSNBC. Do you want to hang up for a few and see if Senator Casey joins, or do you want to, we can always recommence the live stream if you get a heads up from him that he becomes available.
Yeah, I mean, he says, we're just intensely behind.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that, I don't have any idea what that means. I just know when the MSNBC calls, I'm supposed to be ready. And
why don't we sign off here? We've been cooking along for an hour. It's probably a good place as any to sign off. And if we get the senator shortly and you're not encumbered with fancy cable news people, then we'll spark it back up again.
Sounds good. And again, everybody, I know you're super stressed out, right? But we're right within those parameters of the two outcomes that I've been tweeting about. Outcome one, total ass kicking. Georgia, Texas, Lincoln Project effect. Republicans have seen the light. America is saved, and it's like, woo, like we're really going to save America. That didn't happen. Okay. Would have been great. But we're still within those parameters of the other option of the blue wall. So just look up at the Midwest and pray to God that walls that holds us together. So
thanks for your thoughts, Rachel. We'll talk to you again soon.
all right. Bye.
Bye, everybody.